In the heart of a small village, a young girl named Amelia was known among the townsfolk as the bread seller. This name was not just a description of her profession, but a symbol of her resilience in the face of life's harshness. She lived in a modest cottage that was always filled with the aroma of fresh bread, which she made with her small hands. Every day, Amelia would knead dough with care, not only to sell in the market, but to bring hope back to her home. She was the only child of her sick mother, who was ravaged by tuberculosis and made life exceedingly difficult. Amelia had not known the taste of childhood, dedicating every moment of her life to earning enough money to buy medicine for her mother. Bread was her means of survival and the only hope to save her mother's life. One night, the medicine ran out in Amelia's house, and her poor mother's cough grew, so severe it pierced the silence like a wounded bird. There wasn't a single penny left in the home, not even a glimmer of hope. Her mother looked at her with eyes drowning in sorrow, feeling that she was a burden on the child who never knew a childhood. Her mother felt guilty as her illness had worn down Amelia, yet the girl never complained, always striving to help with love and loyalty. Under the weight of need and worry, Amelia spent the entire night kneading bread. Her small hands shook with fatigue, but her heart beat with hope. With the first light of dawn, she walked with a basket of bread on her frail shoulders, heading to the market, hoping to sell what she had made and bring back the medicine that might ease her mother's pain. Her mother knew deep down that the sickness was a result of hard work. After Amelia's father died in the war, she had to work on the estates of the wealthy, braving the biting cold in tattered clothing until she fell ill. She hadn't known that the cold she neglected would turn into tuberculosis, confining her to bed, leaving her daughter to bear the heavy burden of life. Amelia ventured out that early morning as the village lay in deep sleep, with windows tightly shut except for a few faint lights sneaking out from homes. She stood on the sidewalk, waiting for any passerby who might buy her fresh bread, into which she had poured all her hopes. The cold air stung her face and cut through her bones like knives, her tattered clothes barely covering her thin body. Frost gathered on the edges of her basket, and with each breath, steam escaped from her trembling mouth. She shivered from the cold, but her heart remained steadfast, clinging to the last thread of hope. In those harsh moments, Amelia wasn't thinking of herself, but of her sick mother waiting in the cottage, desperately needing the medicine. Suddenly, the sound of horse-drawn carriage wheels broke the silence as it passed quickly by Amelia, the driver paying no mind to the girl standing on the sidewalk. In a moment, the wheels splashed muddy water on Amelia and her basket. She could only stare in shock as the fresh bread she had spent the night making turned into clumps of mud and water, completely ruined. She froze for a moment, then fell to her knees, tears falling from her eyes like rain. She didn't scream aloud, but her cry was silent, trapped in her weary heart. While Amelia was bent over the basket of wet bread, tears still streaming from her eyes, she suddenly heard a strange movement, as if something was stirring and a faint whispering coming from the basket. She jumped back quickly, her heart racing. "What is that sound?" she wondered anxiously as she looked at the basket in astonishment. It was just a loaf of bread, but it seemed to be waking from a deep sleep. It yawned and then spoke in a sarcastic, mocking tone. "Why did you wake me up with your annoying crying? I was having a wonderful sleep." Amelia couldn't believe what she was seeing. She paused for a moment, then rubbed her eyes as if to make sure she wasn't dreaming. "A talking loaf of bread? Is this possible? Am I dreaming?" Her wide eyes were filled with amazement. She couldn't tell if what was happening was real or just a figment of her sorrowful imagination. The loaf of bread jumped out of the basket nimbly, looked wistfully at the remaining soggy, dirty bread, and then said in a calm, comforting voice, "Don't be sad, little Amelia. I'll make everything right again." Amelia was speechless, frozen in place out of shock. Before her stood a loaf of bread with arms, eyes, and a mouth. How could that be? She felt as if her mind couldn't comprehend what was happening. She stared at it in amazement, wondering to herself, is this real? Or am I hallucinating from exhaustion? Despite the strangeness of the situation, there was a part of her that wanted to believe. In the blink of an eye, the loaf raised its tiny hands and let out a commanding shout, as if it were a general issuing orders. Return to your original state. Suddenly, the wet bread pieces began to move and dance in place, as if responding to his magic command. In a matter of moments, the bread returned to its fresh state, pure and warm, as if nothing had happened. Amelia couldn't believe her eyes as she watched the miracle unfold before her. Her shock turned into a profound silence as she saw the bread restore itself, all thanks to a talking loaf with unexpected powers. And within moments, Amelia was amazed by a crowd of people approaching her quickly, drawn by the scent of fresh bread that filled the place. They were racing towards her, jostling to be the first to buy her now restored bread. She held her basket in astonishment as she saw the loaves fly out of her hands while eager customers generously handed her money. She couldn't believe her luck. Moments ago, she had been engulfed in despair, and now she was surrounded by a throng of people happily buying all she had. It felt like a miracle, and every time she looked at the talking loaf, she realized that what had happened was more than just a coincidence. Amelia bought the medicine for her mother and returned home, her heart filled with happiness and gratitude for what had happened. She wasn't alone at that moment. The talking loaf accompanied her, becoming her faithful friend who never left her side. Though mischievous at times, his presence brought joy to her heart and filled her life with happiness. His role wasn't limited to companionship. He began teaching her the secrets of baking and how to make the most famous bread on earth. Amelia learned quickly, and with each passing day, her bread became more delicious and renowned. Soon, the news of Amelia's famous bread spread throughout the village and even to neighboring villages. Everyone talked about Amelia's famous bread, and the poor little girl who used to sell bread on the street became a successful businesswoman. Her business grew steadily, and she opened the most famous bread shops, becoming a destination for everyone. One day, a noble and handsome lord decided to hold a grand banquet to which he invited all the celebrities and wealthy people of the town. Preparations were in full swing, with the Lord enlisting the help of the most famous chefs and bakers from around the world to ensure that the banquet would be dazzling and unforgettable. However, just before the dinner was to be served, disaster struck. All the bread prepared for the banquet was burnt. The servants were gripped with terror and panic, and time was against them. As pale faces looked around, fear of punishment evident, a clever maid advised them to go to Amelia's famous bakery, where the bread everyone talks about was made. Indeed, one of the bakers sneaked to Amelia's bakery. Upon arrival, he purchased all the bread available, but needed more. He asked the beautiful Amelia to bake more quickly, and she agreed, helping him with all her might. With precision and speed, the loaves of bread were ready. At the feast, the dinner was served perfectly, and the bread caught everyone's attention. Its taste was unlike any bread they had ever had, to the point where guests kept requesting more. The feast ended with great success, and all the talk was about the delicious bread that delighted everyone. However, the Lord, known for his sharp mind and keen eyes, began to suspect the source of the bread. He summoned his bakers and asked them about the secret of this unique bread. At first, the bakers denied, claiming they baked it themselves. But under the intense gaze and precise questions of the Lord, they couldn't maintain the lie. Finally, they confessed the source of the bread. The bread came from Amelia's famous bakery. The handsome lord asked his servant to go to Amelia and request that she come to work at his luxurious palace as a baker, thinking that she was an old woman owning the bakery. The servant went to Amelia and presented her with the lord's offer. Amelia politely declined, saying she preferred to continue her work, finding happiness and satisfaction in her bakery. The servant repeated the request a second and third time. Each time, Amelia courteously refused. These repeated attempts only strengthened her resolve. The handsome lord decided to go to Amelia himself, an unprecedented decision. For the lord to request a woman to work for him in person? It was unexpected. But his pride didn't stop him from taking the step, ignoring all the traditions and rules governing his kingdom. The lord arrived at the bakery, standing with his overwhelming charm at the entrance. Amelia, the girl of unparalleled beauty, was busy organizing orders. He initially thought she was the daughter of the shop owner. He was enchanted by her beauty, innocence, and purity, but Amelia paid him no heed. Neither his luxurious appearance nor his fine clothes had any effect on her. She treated him calmly and firmly, ignoring his charm that always captivated women. He approached her with confident steps and, with an authoritative tone, said, "I'm not here to buy bread. I'm here to buy the owner of the bread." His words were shocking, revealing his arrogance and conceit, but Amelia, unaffected by his pride, looked at him calmly, as if to say without words, "You won't get what you want that easily." The lord replied with arrogance, "So, you know who I am now?" Amelia confidently answered, "Yes, and I've told your servant that I won't work for you." The lord looked at her in surprise and asked, "Are you the baker?" Amelia replied, "Yes, and why all this surprise?" The lord, astonished, said, "I thought the baker was an old woman. I didn't know that there were young and delicate girls like you who would spend their time behind an oven." Amelia answered with a light laugh, "And at night too, my lord." He looked at her with admiration and wonder and said, "I want you to bake bread in my palace. Name any price you want." Amelia calmly replied, "My lord, I am happy and content with my work here. Thank you for your offer, but I must decline. Please don't embarrass me further." The lord's harsh response was a shock to the proud lord, as he had never experienced such an insult before. He was very angry and walked away from the bakery, signs of displeasure evident on his face. The lord thought about Amelia often, whether in his sleep or awake. That poor girl occupied his mind constantly, and her harsh response shook his being and made him feel humiliated. How dare a simple girl confront the wealthy lord whom everyone feared? He did not realize that this anger he felt was awakening another feeling within him. His feelings began to intertwine, and this sense of provocation turned into something deeper. Amid all this, he discovered something new in himself: love. He began to believe in his heart that Amelia was not just a woman rejecting his requests, but a person who provoked his emotions and piqued his interest in unexpected ways. How could an ordinary girl captivate his heart so strongly? The lord felt the need to know more about Amelia, determined to understand her personality and the reasons behind her strong and dignified behavior. The next day, he sent his trusted friends to the village to gather more information about Amelia. They closely monitored her daily life, recording the finest details about her patience and determination. They discovered that Amelia was not just a talented baker, but a symbol of selflessness and devotion, living her life for her mother and striving to keep hope alive in her heart despite the hardships. The lord decided to take a new step in his attempt to convince Amelia to work for him, but this time his intentions were more complicated. He sought not only to persuade her, but also to uncover the secret of her strength and how a poor girl could be so strong and influential. The lord decided to visit Amelia once again, arriving at the bakery late in the evening when Amelia was finishing her daily work. The lord stood at the entrance, where Amelia was intently examining the dough. When she saw the lord, she stopped working and asked seriously, "What are you doing here again, my lord?" The lord replied gently, in a manner Amelia was not accustomed to, saying, "I came to apologize. I now realize that I was wrong in my judgment and selfishness, and I am honestly fascinated by your character and strength." Amelia was surprised by his sincere apology, something she did not expect from the proud and self-admiring lord. He politely requested her, "Well, I am hosting a party at my palace, and I would like to invite you not as a baker, but as a guest of honor." Amelia was puzzled and asked cautiously, "But why?" He answered politely, "Do not reply now. Think about it at your own pace, and trust that I will be happy with your presence." Lord Harold threw a grand ball. He invited all the town's wealthy elites and beautiful women, but the surprise was his invitation to Amelia, not as a baker, but as a guest. At first, Amelia refused the invitation, but a talking loaf of bread, with its cunning and daring, insisted she go. The loaf had noticed how Amelia began speaking of him frequently, even if with frustration, which indicated that she was growing fond of him. Amelia bought a stunning dress for the ball, styled her hair, and the loaf helped her become the most beautiful girl imaginable. When she entered the ballroom, everyone was awestruck by her beauty, so much so that Lord Harold couldn't believe his eyes. Could this be the same baker girl who spent years in the bakery's furnace? Was this stunning lady the same one mentioned in tales of poverty and hardship? Lord Harold became enchanted by her beauty and tried to keep her away from everyone else, increasing his jealousy and confusion. Everyone wanted to talk to her, and it seemed he wanted to hide her away from their eyes, watching her every move with intense jealousy. When the ball ended and Amelia wished to leave, the Lord asked her to follow him to see something special. He took her to a part of the palace that seemed like a bakery equipped with the latest technologies, as if it had come out of a fairy tale. Amelia was amazed by the place's beauty and wonder. Lord Harold said, "I prepared this bakery for you when I asked you to work here, but now I don't want you to be just a baker. I want you to be my life partner, my wife." His proposal shocked her deeply. How could a handsome and arrogant lord propose to a poor girl as a wife? Could this be believable? Amelia was filled with conflicting emotions and began to doubt the Lord's sincerity and true intentions. She realized that this moment could change her life forever, and she faced this strange, unexpected proposal, having to make a crucial decision. Amelia returned home with her heart still pounding from the night's events. The talking bread loaf was waiting for her eagerly, as if it had lived every moment awaiting the news she would bring. The bread didn't let her enter quietly, but bombarded her with rapid-fire questions. What happened? How was it? Why didn't you accept? When will you decide? Amelia, tense, shouted, "Calm down. I'll tell you everything." Amelia approached the table, and the loaf sat beside her, ready to listen. She told it all about Lord Harold's proposal and how he wanted her to be his partner and wife, not just a baker. The bread loaf smiled slyly and said, "I knew this would happen from the start. It was only a matter of time. You deserve to live like a queen, not just a bread seller." Amelia was thrown back into a state of confusion, her heart filled with tangled emotions. She couldn't fully understand the deep impact the wealthy young man had on her heart. It wasn't just admiration. There was a deeper feeling mixed with bewilderment and fear. Suddenly, Amelia realized that her confusion wasn't only about Lord Harold, but also about the talking bread loaf. It had been her companion through many hard and joyful moments, and now it was guiding her towards a pivotal decision. She took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts, knowing her decision would affect not just her life, but everyone around her. She stood before the magical bread loaf and decided she needed time to think over what she truly wanted from her life and what was best for her. When Amelia consulted her mother about the dazzling offer from Lord Harold, her mother did not hesitate in showing full support. Her mother, who had lived years of pain and poverty, lived every moment for her daughter's happiness. Amelia's mother listened intently, and as Amelia finished speaking, her mother's eyes filled with tears of love and pride. Her mother said, with a voice full of joy and happiness, "My dear, how can any mother refuse such an opportunity for you? I've spent my whole life seeking happiness for you, and now here's a chance you never dreamed of. If this offer means something to you, I will support you with all my might. You deserve happiness and a good life." Amelia felt relieved hearing her mother's approval and began to see her feelings more clearly. She knew her mother might not provide much financial support, but she gave her immense emotional support, which was significant. With her mother's encouragement, Amelia felt confident to make her decision. Despite all the confusion and hesitation, she realized that this offer might be a fresh start, a chance to change her destiny and her mother's for the better. Her mother encouraged her to follow her heart and think about the future she wanted. In that moment, Amelia decided to accept the Lord's offer and prepared for the next step in her life, a step that would change everything. One day, while Amelia was working in her bakery, the Lord entered the shop stealthily, without announcing himself. His curiosity had driven him to make this unexpected visit, intrigued by Amelia and her world. When the Lord entered the bakery, he saw Amelia sitting at the table, talking to a loaf of bread as if it were her closest friend. The scene was strange. The loaf was speaking with humor and entertainment while Amelia listened and laughed at times. The Lord could hardly believe his eyes, as the talking loaf seemed a natural part of her life, as if she were talking to a living person. The Lord froze in place, unable to believe that this was the secret behind Amelia's baking prowess. He had heard of the legendary bread she made, but hadn't imagined that such an extraordinary element was behind her skill. When Amelia noticed the Lord's presence, she too froze, initially stunned. It wasn't easy for her to explain this to the wealthy Lord, but the talking loaf, feeling the urgency to protect Amelia's secret, bravely said, "No need to hide anything now. He has discovered the truth, and there's nothing left to conceal." The Lord looked at the loaf and curiously asked, "How is this possible? How can bread talk?" Amelia cautiously replied, "This loaf has been with me for a long time. It's not just bread, it's a friend who helps me in my life. We help each other." Suddenly, a fire broke out in the shop while the Lord and Amelia were talking in the bakery. Flames rose quickly, and the smoke filled the place, creating a highly dangerous situation. The talking loaf was trapped by the fire, adding to the chaos and panic. In the midst of chaos, the Lord, who had been browsing the shop, stripped away his pride and displayed unexpected bravery. He pushed Amelia away from the fire and took her to safety outside the bakery. Then he went back inside, challenging the flames and smoke to rescue the talking loaf of bread. He continued to push himself until he managed to get the magical loaf out of the fire, showing courage and nobility beyond description. When he came back outside, the Lord was covered in smoke and ash, but thanks to his bravery, the bakery had been saved, and the loaf, although slightly damaged, was still there. Amelia, who had witnessed the scene with horror, looked at the Lord with gratitude and wonder. She realized that behind the arrogant facade and the wealth, there was a noble and brave human being willing to risk his life for others. "I never thought that behind your pride there is a human being with such nobility. Thank you. I would have forgotten that I was scared and terrified if it weren't for your brave act," Amelia said gratefully. "Maybe I am arrogant, but I couldn't just stand by while there was danger," the Lord replied, catching his breath. From that moment, Amelia's view of the Lord changed. She began to understand that he was not just a wealthy, arrogant man, but a person with a brave and noble heart. Her feelings for him became more complicated and deep, and his noble actions greatly affected her emotions. She started thinking that maybe this man could share her life in a completely different way than anyone she had ever known. As the Lord and Amelia were covered in soot and fire marks, the Lord knelt, his face smeared with black, making him look funny, and asked Amelia to marry him once more. Amelia, with her disheveled hair and funny-looking face, remained silent until she heard the magical loaf of bread shout, "Say yes. Come on. What are you waiting for?" Amelia laughed, and the handsome lord smiled and said, "Don't make me wait longer, my dear. The fire burns me more inside than it did the bakery." "I agree, but on one condition," Amelia replied. "What condition?" the lord asked curiously. "That my mother lives with us in the mansion because she is ill." "Of course, she will live with us, cherished and respected," the lord quickly replied. Amelia added, "And also, there's another condition." She looked at the talking loaf of bread, which was displaying a childish behavior when shy, and smiled, saying, "And I want my friend the magical loaf of bread to live with us too." The Lord laughed and said, "I want him to live with us as well. I like him, and he seems like he will entertain me with his humor." The magical loaf of bread shouted, "Who said I'm a clown?" Everyone laughed, despite the loss they had suffered at the bakery. Then the Lord turned to Amelia and said, "I also have a condition." Amelia asked him in surprise, "What is it?" "That you bake me your delicious bread every day, just for me. I want to monopolize you forever." Amelia replied with a shy smile, "Agreed." The Lord and Amelia got married, and a grand wedding was held. They were the most beautiful couple on earth and lived happily ever after, accompanied by the talking loaf of bread that added a touch of humor and magic to their lives.